In Denmark, surrounded by rolling fields and forests, lies a lake whose waters once gave life to a remarkable place. More than 600 years ago, in the early 15th century, the story began. At that time, this was nothing more than a simple watermill, a modest building where a single wheel, turned by the flowing stream, ground grain into flour. The first records appear around the year 1414. Back then, ownership was in constant change. Nobles, knights, bishops, each left their mark on its history. For a time, the mill was tied to the bishopric in Reb. Later, after the Reformation, it came under the Danish crown. In 1803, that it became a freeholding property, privately owned and no longer bound by feudal duties. For centuries, it remained at the center of rural life. Imagine the steady rhythm of the wheel as it churned day and night, the sound of grinding stones echoing in the valley. Farmers would arrive with sacks of grain, children running alongside, the smell of fresh flour hanging in the air. By the 1800s, the mill grew more sophisticated. New machines were added, a buckwheat grinder, a system for producing groats, and even a bakery. At one point, bread was made in enormous quantities minus 88 loaves of rye, each weighing 16 pounds, baked and delivered to surrounding villages 3 times a week. Remarkably, even the kneading machines were powered by water. This was more than a mill. It had become an early example of a small-scale industrial hub. But time does not stand still. By the early 1900s, change was coming. The old mill house was replaced with a new residence in 1902. Soon after, the owners began to rethink its purpose. Milling was becoming less profitable. Industrial mills elsewhere were faster, larger, more efficient. The solution was transformation. In the 1930s, the old milling site was reborn. The sound of grinding stones gave way to laughter, music, and the voices of visitors. The mill became a restaurant, later a hotel, a place of hospitality rather than hard labor. It welcomed travelers, families, and couples seeking peace in the countryside. From then on, its story shifted from production to experience. Guests came not only for food and rest, but for the atmosphere. Surrounded by nature with the calm waters of the lake reflecting the sky, the place offered something rare, a balance between history, comfort, and serenity. One of its most unique features was the themed rooms. Instead of plain hotel chambers, each space was crafted with identity, inspired by history, literature, or faraway lands. There was a room dedicated to Hans Christian Andersen, echoing the magic of fairy tales. Another honored Kaj Munk, the playwright and pastor whose courage during the Second World War became legendary. There was a Leonora Christine room, evoking the tragic life of the imprisoned noblewoman, and a URBEX room, celebrating the poet of the Danish countryside. Other rooms carried the flavor of distant worlds. Swaziland, with African-inspired touches. Kaj Munk, with references to Chinese elegance. Columbus, suggesting voyages and discovery. For couples, there were romantic suites. For families, a large guest house named Valhalla, overlooking the lake. Some rooms even offered whirlpools, a modern luxury woven into the historic walls. Walking through the corridors was like traveling through time and culture, each door opening into a different story. For many, staying there was not just a night in a hotel, but an experience, a journey within a journey. And the history was not forgotten. Beneath the main building, in the cool basement, lay a small museum. Visitors could see original mill wheels, wooden gears, and tools once used by millers. There was even a tiny alcove where the miller's assistant would sleep. It was a living reminder of the centuries of toil that had built the foundation of this place. Decade after decade, it grew as a beloved destination. Weddings were celebrated in its halls, anniversaries remembered, families reunited. Travelers came from across Denmark and beyond, drawn by its rustic charm and tranquil setting. But every story has shadows. In the stillness of a summer night in July 2021, tragedy struck. Fire broke out, spreading quickly through the old wooden structures. Flames lit the night sky, reflected in the waters of the lake. By dawn, centuries of history had been reduced to smoldering ruins. The restaurant, the rooms, the museum are almost all gone. And yet no lives were lost. Those who had once filled the halls with laughter were safe. Still, the grief was heavy. To lose a building is one thing. To lose a place where so many memories had been made, that was something deeper. The area was sealed off, investigated, and later handed to insurers. Since then, the grounds have remained closed. Paths still circle the lake, but the heart of the site, the inn, the hotel, the place of gathering, remains silent. Today, its future is uncertain. Will it be rebuilt, restored? Or will it remain only as a memory, a chapter in history? Time will tell. But one thing is certain, What began as a simple watermill in the 15th century became much more than a building. It became a symbol of transformation, from labor to hospitality, from survival to culture, from history to memory. Even in ashes, its spirit endures. In the stories told, in the photographs saved, and in the hearts of those who once walked its halls. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy our videos, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment. It means a lot to us.